Yeah.
All right. Hey friends, my name is Mac. Today I got Jason and Thomas with me today. We're going to talk about the psychology behind New Year's resolutions and why they often fail and how to make them stick. So, fellas, what, what were your? Did you guys set any New Year's resolution in the beginning of this year?
I did not set any New Year's resolutions this year.
Excellent, Jason.
For me, it was just go attend every single class.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And
You set any
Same.
New Year's resolutions, Mac?
no, I didn't. Yeah, I'm not really like a big New Year's resolution person, but I'm interested in like, I guess it's a good thing to think about in the beginning of the year. Maybe you can help me keep track of like my goals and just to self-improve in a way. So, but Jason, since you're the only person that set a New Year's resolution in this room, how has it been going for you?
Well, this fall school year, it's been going okay, but
Mhm.
I believe when I originally set the goal in January, I think the first month was good. I was going to every class,
Mhm.
but I did notice that month 2 and 3, my motivation did begin to die down, and found myself not attending class as frequently as I'd like. But the first month was strong.
Mm-hmm. And do you feel that anything has changed in terms of like why you're not kind of going to class consistently, or is anything that going on in your life, or anything that's changing your like the way you see things, or motivation wise?
No, not much has changed, but I did notice kind of a pattern. Like I mentioned in January, how the first month I was going strong, attending class,
Right.
and then it began to die down. I think I saw a similar pattern once this past school year started in September. So September I was going to class quite frequently, but then once like athletics and other commitments picked up,
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that I wasn't in class as much as I'd like to, and I wasn't even dedicating a lot of my a lot of my time outside of class time toward academics, and I found myself kind of losing motivation to keep pursuing school and stuff like that.
Any comments on
I think it's probably a common theme amongst most people, especially like varsity athletes, when they set if they set a New Year's resolution of I want to attend every class. You can't really like predict what may else go on like over the course of a season or like school year, like especially for you this semester with the injuries that you've had to deal with.
Yeah, unfortunately, I did deal with some unexpected injuries, and that did stray me away from my original goal of attending class. But stuff happens, and I just need to adjust accordingly.
I just think see pretty well, like amongst a lot of the literature that we've explored within this topic of setting New Year's resolutions, there's kind of certain ways that when like an adverse effect kind of happens in the term like course of your year and setting your goal of like how you can either like stick to it, keep going with it, or kind of falter and just abandon the resolution altogether.
Yeah, I think there is a ton of research that actually looks into specifically New Year's resolution goals and why they fail, and yeah, I'm really curious as to specifically like what that research says.
Yeah, and now that you've shared, I think it's a good time to bring up that did you set any like at the beginning of the year, besides that you want to attend classes consistently throughout the year? And I think that's like a pretty like a long term like goal for you, like throughout the year.
Yeah.
But did you ever think about that? You want to set any specific goals? For example, you're gonna break it down into different periods, like every 2 months, like within 2 months or a month, that something that we can achieve to lead up towards kind of like a long term, like a goal.
Definitely, when I first made the goal, I I think like now looking back on it, I was probably a little too broad and too vague with that original goal. Like just attending class more, like that's pretty broad. I think if I were to think of a newer goal, I would probably be more specific. Like, and it'd probably be something like attend class for this specific class. Like, don't miss these tutorial sessions or office hours, or don't just something more specific and something less vague and broad. I think would definitely help.
Right. And I think that we like I came across an article about like exploring those like long-term goals and short-term specific goals and their effect on your New Year's resolution. And so the the main concepts, I think they are called superordinate and subordinate goals. So the superordinate ones are just kind of synonymous with like a long-term goal.
Yeah, like kind of a more of an abstract type of goal.
And then the subordinate, obviously, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. So you can break it down into different segments.
Yeah,
and
very specific.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that one of the studies I've shown, I think it was like a 3 months long study. They looked at the combination of setting specific goals, like the subordinate goals, with a long-term goal or superordinate goals, and then they found some positive effects on the stickability per se for New Year's resolution.
Yeah, I guess this is the one by Hockley and colleagues that you're referring to. I think in that one, what I read, they found that people who set both like a proximal goal, kind of that's more close in nature and shorter term, and a distal goal, kind of that long term overarching for the year, they perform better than people who only had like a distal goal. I think this kind of aligns more with the idea too that focusing on both like a subordinate abstract goal and a subordinate or specific goal kind of helps motivate that goal pursuit more than just focusing solely on those superordinate goals. I think some of the advantage of this combination too is like it's further reflected in the research on goal facilitation. Kind of having that intergoal facilitation occurs more when the pursuit of one goal simultaneously kind of increases that likelihood of success in reaching another goal. And kind of concur to different instrumental relations between goals. It kind of implies that progressing toward one goal also represents progressing toward another goal that we have for ourselves.
I also think that if you break a long-term goal into small chunks, or like to set a specific goal for a time frame, it can also keeps your motivation up in a way that you can kind of cross off one of the like a checklist kind of thing. That you achieve one thing, and you just kind of be when you see that you've done something, I think you can be more towards kind of intrinsically like moving towards that intrinsically motivation that you want to get better as a person instead of like just like affected by external factors, I would say. So
I had one study that actually talked about how it actually relates to my situation quite well. It talked about how once your initial motivation begins to die, how stress levels rise if you try and persist toward this one specific goal, even though like for me, like my goal was to attend class, but stuff comes up. Like in my instance, like I got an injury, and that obviously affects my ability to go to class. So just being flexible and not being too tenacious toward a goal, I think this one study talks about that quite well. And they used an 8-month longitudinal study, and they measured participants' stress levels at baseline and halfway through the year and at the end of the year, and they found that halfway through the year, those people that had higher stress levels were way less likely to persist toward that goal and achieve that goal. And they mentioned that actually being flexible and adjusting your goals accordingly if obstacles do come up is a way better option than just sticking toward that one goal you had in the beginning. And I think that fits my old New Year's resolution quite well, and it applies quite well.
Yeah, and I think it's important. Well, to me, I think it's important to have some tenacity, like how we can persist through challenges. But I think it's
balance.
But I think it's like a double-edged sword,
It
right?
is,
Like
yeah.
if you, like you can be more like very stubborn in a way. You can lead to like you want to keep persist some things that's can be a little bit unrealistic at times.
Yeah.
If you don't have, I guess, like the flexibility, the adaptation, in situations like that, your well-being can be negatively impacted. Even though you try to achieve something, like your intention is right, but if it's really unrealistic, and it kills your motivation, and then what's the point of you setting a goal that you can't even achieve? And you might even have negative impact on your own well-being.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
I think especially since like from like across the literature, most of the research studies have found that a lot of the resolutions people set kind of more health focused. And when kind of looking like if you just want to say like I want to lead a healthier life, or if I want to like you get more specific and say like I want to lose like 10 pounds, I'm gonna eat like I'm gonna create my dinner plate like 40% is gonna be veggies, another 40% is gonna be protein, and 20% like fats and like carbohydrates and all that. But then since like over the course of the year, like you have like the holidays like Halloween, Christmas, Thanksgiving,
you can
Easter.
you have your cheat days too.
Yeah,
exactly.
Like if you're that strict with it, and like you have like if your family lives in another like country or another province, and you're doing a lot of traveling, like you tend not to eat the healthiest foods during that time. Like if you're at the airport, like most of that food, it's like McDonald's, A&W, burgers, stuff like that. So if you kind of like are too strict on yourself in that regard, and you kind of beat yourself up, and you see that you're not kind of tracking it or doing the same sort of things, and you kind of fall into that negative mindset, which can then like lead you into that quitting, which is quite a complex like decision to make.
I believe like pursuit of your goal should never hinder your well-being. Like I think your well-being should always be prioritized, and when people get too like hyper fixated on this on their goals, they can kind of lose priority of other factors of their life that are also like very important. So
but I think even though we're just talking about it right now, that there's so much, it's easier said than done, right? Like you can always say that we have to be flexible with our goals. We have to adapt to ever changing life in a way. But I think sometimes it's really hard to achieve that. I don't know if you guys felt that. It's easy to say it, but
but how do you actually?
Like, do you have much experience setting your own like a resolution or long-term goal for yourself?
I mean, I didn't really set any New Year's resolution like at the beginning of the year, but I have set small like goals to go to gym consistently. Like maybe I think I set I'm trying to go 3 days a week. I think I set that goal in about like March, but still the beginning of the year, but not like in January. But yeah, I think at the beginning I was very motivated. Yeah, I can go to the gym 3 days a week. I think I did it probably for 2-3 weeks. But after that, life happened. There's so much things that unpredictable things that come out, and then that you just don't have time and like dedication to that goal, and then and I didn't really I wasn't really being flexible with my schedule.
Right.
So, and that's what we're talking about right now, is that you have to be flexible.
Would you consider yourself more like a beginner in terms of goal setting?
Probably like a rookie. Beginner.
Yeah, cause I think like kind of go back to that very first class. I think it was we had like in September. We were talking about like that specific or like the SMART goal setting. Kind of one of the things that like Professor Beauchamp mentioned was for like beginners specifically. Kind of if you make that goal too specific or too difficult, it's a lot harder for them to kind of achieve that goal. But if it's more of like a little more vague and like not as strict, it's a little easier for them. And like short term in nature, it's easier to kind of build up that habit and kind of like form it, and then you can start setting like longer goals and longer goals and longer goals, and then like have that action plan in place.
Exactly. Yeah. So you guys talked about like what, like individually what we can do toward our goals and how we can kind of react when obstacles do come up. But also I want to touch on like peer support and support from other resources that could potentially help you achieve these goals. And there was this one study I looked at, and the results were pretty clear. It was done by Cox and colleagues in 2017. So they used a randomized control trial with a sample that consisted mainly of seniors, but they had one group that was receiving support, and so for context as well, the sample was primarily inactive at baseline, and the main goal was to increase activity levels, and they found that the group that had more support and were doing check-ins regularly and kind of had people helping structure their goals accordingly, they found that that group significantly increased their physical activity and as well as their daily step count. I believe their daily step count increased by about 1,200 steps, which is a pretty significant effect size. I think it's an effect size of less than 0.001, and so that's a pretty strong effect. And on the other hand, the control group who didn't receive any support, they were way more likely to were way less likely to pursue their goals and kind of be consistent with that. And I thought that was very interesting, and I think that's kind of an underlooked aspect, whereas your goals, they're supposed to be individual, but also at the same time, I think there's tons of support you can use from other people. And there is an aspect where just as simple as telling your goal to someone, that alone can hold you accountable, and that person, just with like check-ins every now and then about that goal can do a lot for that one person who is setting that goal and keeping them consistent, I think.
Exactly, yeah. I think it's pretty in line with another study that was done by Martin Oscarson and colleagues, who kind of found that like it was like in the study they created like 3 groups. One group had like no extra support. It was like left to their own, like create a goal like however you want. Like they weren't given like any information. It needs to be like a SMART goal or like vague or anything like that. And then like another group who had a little bit of like moderate support. Another group that had like full support, like check-ins like monthly. Like told exactly how to create a goal, and then pretty much like the findings were right in line with a few like group that received like no support compared to the other groups. It was found like the groups that had support were much more likely to like stick to the resolutions and stick to the goals, and like just having that social support kind of helps keep you in line with it. But the interesting thing actually I found in this study was that kind of found that there's a bit of a fine line between that social support with like groups who receive like that group that received full support and like monthly check-ins and like all that. They're actually a little bit less likely to complete their resolution, like stick to it, compared to the group that received like a little bit less support than that.
So too much support can be, I wouldn't say bad in some ways, but it can
kind of have like that detrimental effect a little bit. Kind of like
there's that balance. There's that balance that you should
the way
have.
Like I kind of see it as like if you get like nagged on by your parents like growing up, like you kind of like if you already knew that you were gonna do something and they kind of like kept harping on you to do that, like you kind of made you less likely to want to do it.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I see.
So there is like a fine line between too much support and not enough support in a way.
Yeah,
that's interesting because I just thought that if you have enough, like you have support, then you're kind of more likely to be motivated to do something and then to subsequently achieve a goal. But I think it's really interesting. It's a good thing that you brought up, Thomas, that there was too much support it can have like negative effects.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, since Jason, you've shared that your struggle with going to classes consistently.
Mm-hmm.
I know we've talked about all these findings that we've read in the past. I think it's a good time to talk about what are the things that you can do. What are the different steps you can take for like maybe next year, to set like different combinations of goals, like long term, short term,
Mm-hmm.
for you to, I guess, stick to your goals better, or for you to, I guess, sustain that motivation as well to achieve something.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think I touched on this a bit earlier, but I would just, again, my original goal, I think it was way too broad and vague.
Right.
So
Mhm.
just attending every class, I think can be unrealistic in some ways. Like, for example, like in my case, like injuries obviously do come up, and I think moving forward with this coming New Year's in a few months, I'd probably make that same goal, but be more specific. Like attend this one class every time, but if circumstances do come up, let's say I get injured or sickness does come up, I'm not going to be too hard on myself about not or about missing one class or about missing this week, and also using what we talked about regarding peer support. I think just telling a few of my classmates like, hey, like, or it can be as simple as, hey, you want to walk to class together, just doing something like that, just having someone keep me accountable toward my goal. That's a small step toward, I think, achieving this goal.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
especially like for those early 8 a.m. classes.
Yeah, exactly. Those can be tough to get up for.
You kind of like relying on someone else to get you like walk class, kind of like you feel bad that you make them walk by themselves. Kind of like helps keep you accountable in that way too.
Be a good friend too.
Yeah. But anyways, using peer support, but also a way more specific goal, I think, and also just having that option to be flexible, like when stuff does come up, not being too hard on myself if I do miss a class, and if I do miss a class, just doing my best to catch up and attend every class after that.
I think one last thing I want to mention is one of the articles that I saw was by Dixon and colleagues. So they talked about the importance of goal flexibility and the positive impact that it can have on someone's well-being, like overall, like a long-term well-being. So I think it's also important to set goals, like set different goals for when like different events that might happen. So you can think about if you're like if I injured yourself, right? Like what if I injure myself at this time? What are the things that I can do? What are the goals I can set when you are in that situation, right? You can always prepare. Just think of as much as you can, like what are the possible things that could go not really wrong, but sideways, like go south in a way.
Yeah.
So you can be more prepared in that way, and then I think that can also, because otherwise, it might have a negative impact on your well-being, right?
Yeah, like if I miss a class, maybe like a small goal I can build off of that would be just catch up on the unit I missed.
Yeah.
Right.
Give me like, what if I missed a class? What would be my goals to, I guess, catch up? Or what are the things I can do? Or like, what if I get injured? Like, what are the things that we can do at that time?
Yeah. That's a great point. That's a good addition.
Anything to add, Toby?
I think that's covered pretty good there.
Yeah.
Kind of just going about like having that flexibility, not being kind of like too hard on yourself when like life happens.
Yeah.
And kind of like derails your goal. And then it's like if you're kind of like starting out with your goal setting, you don't want to be too specific and kind of too like having that bit of a vagueness can kind of help in just accomplishing that first goal. Because if you're kind of too specific, you can kind of see how you maybe didn't achieve it. Whereas if you're vague, like it's a little bit more kind of open-ended, so you can see how like it's easier to be easier on yourself
Mhm.
in that regard.
Mm.